The moment King Charles opened the doors to Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet again, everything changed, and this time, insiders are whispering that William didn't just stay silent. William made a decision that could shake the future of the monarchy itself, because this is no longer about one meeting, one reunion, or even one family dinner. This is about lines being crossed that were never supposed to be crossed again. This is about a future king watching his father rewrite the rules in real time and deciding he is not going to play along.
Prince Harry. Let's give him a round of applause. At last, he has taken his children to see their granddad.
Does this put us in a situation where there is a constitutional crisis?
This has been an extraordinarily disastrous week.
Because for years we heard that the obstacle that was standing between Harry, Meghan, and these children was the UK thing around security. It just wasn't going to be safe. What changed?
There isn't a laundry in the cosmos big enough to wash all the dirty linen he has aired about his own family. For him to complain about his privacy being invaded takes not just the biscuit, but the whole tin.
What you just heard is not just context. It is the fracture point. Because while Harry walked through those private gates with Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet, William made a choice just as powerful by not walking through them at all. That absence was not scheduling. That absence was strategy. That absence was a message. And here is where everything starts to feel different. Because according to the quiet conversations now circulating behind palace walls, William did not just skip that meeting. William is now reportedly refusing to attend future royal events where Meghan and Harry are expected to be present. Not one event, not one appearance, not one shared moment under the same roof. Think about what that actually means. It means the monarchy is no longer just divided behind closed doors. It is being divided in public schedules, in official calendars, in the very structure of how royal life is presented to the world. It means two parallel royal realities are beginning to form, one where Charles reaches out and one where William pulls back.
To assess it calmly. And this is going to be my view. So I'm not saying that anyone else is right or wrong, but this is personally how I feel about this entire situation. King Charles is a grandfather who, despite everything that's happened, knows that his grandchildren are completely innocent in all of their parents' actions, and he wants to meet them. I've met a few people in my lifetime that have had to put up with certain people that have married into their family, for example, or even a family member, because they want to see the rest of the family if there's children involved. I've seen this happen where grandparents have to put up with a daughter or son's spouse because they know that if they say anything, they will not get to see their grandchildren. I believe that King Charles is 77 years old, that he has cancer, and it seems that it's not the curable kind, and he was the one that finally facilitated having this meet-up with them. Now, are Harry and Meghan doing it for good reasons, for pure of heart reasons? Highly unlikely. Are Harry and Meghan finally putting their children first and putting the king's feelings first? Again, highly unlikely. Do I think that Harry and Meghan have suddenly had a change of heart and they've stopped all their conniving and plotting? Does a leopard change its spots? Again, highly unlikely.
Because inside that house, something deeply personal happened. A grandfather saw grandchildren again. A father sat across from a son after years of distance. But outside that house, something far more dangerous happened. William watched it happen without being part of it. And that changes everything. Because this is not just about emotion. This is about control. This is about timing. And most importantly, this is about who gets to define the future direction of the monarchy.
From William and Catherine, and to get some insight into the work of the real royals. But what I think is so interesting is that William was playing polo when news came out that Harry, Meghan, and the children met with the king and the queen at Highgrove. So everyone is asking the same question: what changed? Because for years we heard that the obstacle that was standing between Harry, Meghan, and these children was the UK thing around security. It just wasn't going to be safe. And Harry said that he could not bring his family back without the protection that he actually felt was necessary. But now I want you to imagine this. So if Meghan and Harry and these children are able to come back, and if they're able to walk through those palace doors and then sit down privately with the king and queen Because at first I heard that the Queen was not going to see Harry, but now we're hearing that the Queen was there as well. And many people are actually going to ask, was security really the only thing that was keeping the family apart? Was that really truly the issue?
Listen carefully to that perspective, because it reveals the tension no official statement ever will. Charles is acting like a father. William is thinking like a future king. And those two roles, they are now colliding in ways that cannot be quietly smoothed over anymore. Because sources are not just describing frustration, they are describing something sharper, something colder, something that looks less like temporary anger and more like a long-term decision, a refusal. And here is the part nobody wants to say out loud. If William refuses to attend events where Meghan and Harry appear, then what happens when those events are unavoidable? What happens when state occasions, royal ceremonies, or even historic family moments demand that everyone be present? Do they reschedule around William? Do they exclude Meghan and Harry? Or do they allow the future King of England to be visibly absent from his own family's most important moments? Because every option creates a different kind of crisis.
Or was there something much deeper that was happening? And this is where King Charles finds himself in an almost impossible position. He really does. But I have a counter to that. But here is the situation, because there is Charles. He is a father, okay? But he is also the king. He is also the king. And the father side of all of this looks at Harry, his son, and he's like, okay, I need to see my son. He's thinking, okay, I've done some things, and Harry has given his dad a hard time about a lot of things around the marriage of Diana and Charles. And so there is this guilt that Charles, I think, feels with Harry, that he tries to, I think, play into Harry's woes, okay? And now we have Harry with his children, and then there is this desire for, I think, the king to want to feed into this relationship to help repair it, because Harry, I believe, has put a big guilt trip on his father. But then you have the public who are looking at this and saying, well, we remember all of the interviews. We remember all of the accusations. I wrote a song, do you remember? Okay? We remember the books, because I want people to remember, right? They're the documentaries, the Oprah interview. We can't forget that also Meghan accused the king and Catherine of being the royal racists. And we saw how sneaky they said it vicariously through that book Endgame with the Omid guy, okay, the Scooby-Doo guy, okay? So you ain't slick, Meghan. So we know that the king has been pushed under a bus, and it's been by Meghan. But what is also interesting is that Meghan, they are saying she's the one that leaked the meeting of the king with Harry and Meghan and the children.
That clip lays out the emotional reality, but underneath it sits a strategic question that is far more unsettling. Why now? Why this reunion? Why this exact moment when tensions had been frozen for years? Because timing in this family is never accidental. Harry arrives, the legal battles shift, the narratives tighten, and suddenly Meghan and the children are back inside the royal orbit in a way they have not been in years. And Charles does not just allow it, Charles facilitates it, which means William is not reacting to a surprise. William is reacting to a pattern that suggests this was never meant to be a one-time meeting, a pattern that suggests this door, once opened, is not going to be closed again anytime soon. And that is where the refusal starts to make sense, because refusing future events is not just about avoiding discomfort. It is about drawing a line before that pattern becomes permanent.
So a lot of people are really asking, where is the accountability before the reunion? We know that Harry wanted an apology before coming back. Like, there's all these things that they said, his security. So we can see that things have been pushed to the side so that there can be a reunion. But then I ask this question: what about Thomas Markle Sr.? You're so quick to reunite with the king, who you called a racist, Meghan Markle, but you won't even go see your own father. considering what has happened to him and his leg being amputated. So we know there's an underlining reason why Meghan has agreed to do this. I know that Harry is doing this because it's very emotional for him to have his father see the children. But there is a big overarching problem that they will never be able to resolve, and I'm going to tell you that here in a second. But this is the difficult part with King Charles, because forgiveness is personal, and a father, he can forgive his son overnight rather quickly. This institution should have never given the leeway to Meghan. I think Meghan should have had to have apologized before the king met with her. He can meet with the kids, but that woman should have stayed her butt on the outside, considering what she has done. But we don't know. Maybe she did apologize privately. Okay, but the fact is the monarchy can only survive because of the relationship that it has with its people. This is between the crown and the people. And a lot of people within the public feel, hold up, wait a minute. We defended the monarchy through all of this. And now everyone just walks right back in the front door like nothing ever happened.
That timing, that last-minute shift, that sense that something changed behind the scenes, it tells you this reunion was not simple. It was negotiated. It was pushed. It was forced into existence by people who needed it to happen. And William sees that, which means William is not just reacting emotionally. William is calculating. Because once Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet step back into that world, even briefly, it raises questions that had already been buried. Questions about roles. Questions about access, questions about influence, and those questions do not disappear after one afternoon. They grow. Now listen to that carefully, because it introduces the most uncomfortable layer of this entire story. Accountability, not just within the family, but with the public, because the monarchy does not exist in isolation. It survives because people believe in it, and when people feel like rules are being rewritten without explanation, trust does not quietly adjust. It cracks.
William is not just thinking about his brother, he is preparing for the future of the monarchy. And I think it was intentional that William would not be around when Harry and Meghan came. He's off playing polo, as we saw. And we can also see that William, he can start to rebuild on a new kind of a monarchy, understanding that things are going to change substantially when the king passes. So how do you rebuild trust without first addressing why everything is broken? How does that even happen? And I think the biggest question is not whether Charles loves Harry. Of course, the father is going to love his son despite him acting like a wackadoodle. But the bigger question really is, can the king repair his family despite what they did to him? And also request that Meghan also repairs things with her father. So the bigger question becomes, can the king repair his family without making the public feel like the loyalty that they have has been forgotten, or that the loyalty that the king has for the public has been forgotten? Because Harry may want reconciliation, and I believe that Charles really does want peace. There's a lot going on, but the public may still be waiting for one thing. And that accountability does not extend just to the royal family. It extends to the things that Meghan has done to the public, the UK public, that she called racist. She called her wedding a spectacle. She's done things to the public. Like, when you look at accountability, like, where's the accountability for Meghan and what she has done with the birth of Archie? She didn't have to be accountable for proving anything. Where's Meghan's accountability to the public, the people that the king reigns over?
And William knows that, which is why this refusal feels less like a reaction and more like a warning. A warning that forgiveness at a personal level cannot be allowed to override the stability of the institution itself. A warning that not every bridge can be rebuilt simply because time has passed. But here is the twist nobody is prepared for. Because while William is pulling away publicly, there are whispers that behind the scenes, William is still making sure Harry is protected during these visits. visits, still ensuring security, still maintaining a quiet line of responsibility that never completely disappears. And that contradiction, that distance mixed with silent protection, that is where this story becomes something far more complicated than anger. Because it means this is not over. And this is where the silence becomes louder than any statement Buckingham Palace could ever release. Because when William refuses to attend future royal events tied to Meghan and Harry, it does not just create distance, it creates a visible fracture that the entire world can see, measure, and question in real time. Because imagine the next major royal gathering. Imagine the cameras already positioned, the commentators already prepared, the public already watching, and then the absence becomes the headline. Not a speech, not a gesture, just a missing figure where the future king is supposed to stand. That absence would not need explanation. It would be the explanation. And here is the uncomfortable truth building behind palace doors right now. If Charles continues opening those private doors to Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet, then William's refusal does not remain a quiet protest. It evolves into a structural conflict that starts shaping how the monarchy functions day to day. Because this is not about one dinner anymore. This is about access. Access to spaces, access to events, access to influence. And once access is reintroduced, even partially, it cannot be controlled in the same way again. Because every future invitation becomes a test. Every appearance becomes a signal. Every decision becomes a statement about who belongs inside that circle and who does not. And William understands that better than anyone, which is why what looks like distance is actually positioning. Because refusing to appear is not just emotional resistance. It is a calculated move that says very clearly there are lines that will not be crossed again, no matter how much time has passed or how many private reunions take place behind closed doors. But here is where it becomes even more complicated, because Charles is not operating from the same place. Charles is operating from urgency. Time, health, legacy, all of it compresses decisions that might have once taken years into moments that feel immediate and irreversible. And when those pressures collide with family fractures, the result is not clarity. It is contradiction, because Charles reaching out to Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet is not just about reconciliation. It is about legacy. It is about not leaving things broken. And William stepping back is not just about anger. It is about control. It is about making sure the next version of the monarchy is not shaped by decisions made in moments of emotional urgency. And those two forces cannot move in the same direction forever, which means something eventually has to give. Because what happens when the next unavoidable moment arrives? A coronation level event, a state ceremony, a global appearance where every member of the family is expected to stand together as one. Does Charles adjust the guest list? Does William break the refusal? Or does the monarchy present itself to the world with a visible divide that no statement can soften? Because that is the scenario insiders are quietly circling right now. Not whether tensions exist, but whether those tensions are about to become impossible to hide. And here is the detail that makes this even more unsettling. Because while the public sees distance, insiders suggest the emotional reality underneath it has not disappeared. The concern, the awareness, the silent responsibility that still exists even without proximity. And that is what makes this fracture so dangerous. Because it is not clean, it is not final. It is still connected in ways that cannot be fully severed even as the visible structure begins to split. Which means every move from this point forward carries double meaning. Every invitation, every refusal, every appearance, every absence, all of it becomes part of a larger narrative that nobody is officially controlling anymore. And the most explosive part of all, this may not be the peak of the tension. This may be the beginning. Because once a future king draws a line like this publicly, it does not disappear quietly. It forces a response. It forces a counter move. It forces a decision that cannot be delayed forever. So now the question is no longer whether William will attend the next event. The question is whether Charles will continue creating situations that William refuses to be part of. And if that continues, then this stops being a family disagreement and starts becoming a defining power struggle over the future of the monarchy itself. Because two visions are now moving in opposite directions. And sooner or later, only one of them can win.